For 72 hours, Titan Manufacturing had been losing nearly $2 million every hour. The main production line, the heart of the company's operations, had shut down without warning. Every attempt to restart it ended with the same flashing red message. System failure. Automatic safety lockdown. 50 of the country's best engineers had been flown in. Software specialists, mechanical experts, automation consultants. Even the company that designed the control system had sent senior technicians. None of them had solved the problem. Coffee cups covered every conference table. Whiteboards were filled with equations. People who hadn't slept in 2 days stared blankly at computer screens. At the center of it all stood CEO Victoria Hale. She was known for making impossible decisions under impossible pressure. But even she looked exhausted. She addressed the room. "Someone tell me something useful." No one spoke. One consultant cleared his throat. "We're still analyzing the software." Victoria looked at the wall clock. "You've been analyzing it for 3 days. The answer isn't going to magically appear." Silence. "My name is Ethan Brooks. I was 40 years old. A widowed single father raising my 9-year-old daughter, Lily. By title, I worked as a maintenance technician. I repaired pumps, adjusted conveyor systems, replaced worn bearings. Most executives barely knew my name. They simply called maintenance whenever something broke. Very few people knew that before my wife became ill, I had spent 15 years designing industrial automation systems. I had helped build production lines across 3 continents. After losing Sarah to cancer, I walked away from corporate life. The constant travel wasn't compatible with raising Lily alone. So I accepted a quiet maintenance job. Less money, more time with my daughter. I'd never regretted the decision. That morning, I was replacing the heating element in the executive coffee machine when I overheard part of the emergency meeting. The words caught my attention. Synchronization failure. Cooling instability. Emergency shutdown. Something didn't fit. When nobody answered Victoria's latest question, I knocked gently on the open conference room door. Every head turned. "I'm sorry to interrupt. I think I know what's causing it." Several engineers looked annoyed. One consultant laughed quietly. "The maintenance guy?" Victoria studied me. "You've been listening?" "I only heard enough." "What makes you think you know something 50 specialists don't?" "I don't. I just know machines." One engineer smirked. "We've already checked every machine." Ethan remained calm. "Did anyone inspect the backup cooling valve installed last Thursday?" The room became quiet. The operations manager opened the maintenance database. He replaced a valve during scheduled maintenance. Victoria frowned. "So, the shutdown began 2 days later." A software consultant shook his head. "Correlation isn't causation." Ethan nodded. "True, but sometimes software tells you a mechanical problem exists. It doesn't create it." Victoria folded her arms. "We've spent millions investigating software. Maybe that's why you haven't found the answer." The room became tense. One senior engineer couldn't hide his irritation. "Do you honestly believe all of us overlooked something that simple?" "I think everyone has been looking in the same direction." Victoria finally sighed. "You have 10 minutes. If you're wrong, security will escort you back to maintenance." Ethan smiled politely. "I won't need 10. He walked toward the control screen. Instead of examining the error code, he watched the live sensor graphs. His eyes focused on one tiny fluctuation. Every 47 seconds, pressure dipped for less than half a second, then recovered. Almost invisible, he quietly asked, "Can someone zoom in?" The graph expanded. "There." One engineer shrugged. "Normal variance." "No. It repeats too perfectly." He picked up a marker. If the cooling valve sticks for half a second, the pressure briefly drops. The software detects overheating risk. It immediately activates emergency protection. Another consultant interrupted. "But diagnostics point to network synchronization. They're reporting the consequence, not the cause." Victoria looked unconvinced. "Can you prove it?" Ethan nodded. "I need 4 minutes." Instead of walking toward the computers, he left the conference room entirely. Several executives exchanged amused smiles. "I knew it. He's guessing." Meanwhile, Ethan calmly entered the production floor. Hundreds of silent machines stretched across the enormous factory. He walked directly to the newly installed backup cooling valve. He didn't remove it. He simply placed one hand against the metal housing, closed his eyes, then smiled. "There you are." A nearby mechanic looked confused. "What?" "The valve isn't defective. It's installed backward." The mechanic blinked. That's impossible. Ethan pointed toward the tiny directional arrow stamped into the casting. Whoever installed it had rotated it exactly 180 degrees. The valve still functioned, just not fast enough during emergency pressure changes. The software interpreted the delayed response as catastrophic failure. Ethan loosened 4 bolts, rotated the valve, retightened everything. Total repair time, 3 minutes, 58 seconds. He picked up the factory radio. You can restart line 1. Inside the conference room, nobody expected anything. Then suddenly, the red warning disappeared. One production line restarted. Then another. Conveyors began moving. Robotic arms resumed their precise movements. Every monitor changed from flashing red to solid green. The operations director stared in disbelief. His radio crackled. Sir, the entire plant is running. Victoria slowly looked toward the conference room door, just as Ethan quietly walked back inside, carrying the wrench he'd used. He placed it on the table. I'm finished. Nobody said a word. Then the oldest engineer in the room slowly stood, looked at the maintenance records, and whispered the sentence that made every consultant realize they had spent 3 days solving the wrong problem. The man who just fixed our factory is the same Ethan Brooks who designed the original production system 15 years ago. The conference room fell completely silent. Every engineer turned toward Ethan. The original designer? One of the oldest consultants adjusted his glasses and stepped closer. I knew your face looked familiar. He opened an old project archive on his laptop. A faded photograph appeared on the screen. 15 years earlier, a much younger Ethan stood beside the very first prototype of the production line. His name appeared beneath the picture. LED Systems Integration Engineer, Ethan Brooks. The room erupted with whispers. Victoria stared at him. You built this. Ethan nodded. I helped design it. Then why are you working in maintenance? He smiled gently. Because life changed. He looked out the conference room window for a moment. My wife became sick. Cancer. I spent more time in hospitals than offices. When she passed away, my daughter needed a father more than another promotion. I chose a job that let me be home every evening. No one spoke. The executives suddenly understood why the quiet maintenance technician always seemed to know every machine inside the factory. He had helped create them. Victoria slowly sat down. I judged you by your uniform. Ethan smiled. It happens. It shouldn't. She replied quietly. The senior consultants looked embarrassed. One admitted, we ignored your questions because of your job title. Ethan shook his head. No, you ignored the machine. It doesn't care who listens to it. Later that afternoon, Victoria personally walked the production floor with Ethan. Employees stopped to thank him as the assembly lines returned to full speed. One operator smiled. I knew if Ethan looked at it, it wouldn't stay broken for long. Victoria noticed something unusual. Every technician greeted Ethan with respect. Not because of authority, because he had spent years teaching them, helping them, listening to them. She quietly asked, why didn't you ever tell anyone who you were? Ethan laughed softly. My daughter doesn't care what I designed. She only asks whether I'll be home before dinner. That's the title that matters most. The next morning, Victoria called an all-company meeting. More than 3,000 employees gathered in the auditorium. She stepped onto the stage holding a maintenance wrench. I've made a mistake. The room grew quiet. I believed expertise always came with impressive job titles. I was wrong. She invited Ethan onto the stage. The audience applauded loudly. He looked uncomfortable. Victoria handed him the microphone. He smiled politely. I honestly don't like speaking in front of crowds. Laughter spread through the audience. I only fixed a valve. One engineer shouted. You saved the company. Ethan shook his head. No, the machine saved itself. It kept warning us. We simply weren't listening. Those simple words stayed with everyone. Instead of announcing a promotion immediately, Victoria revealed a completely different initiative. Every employee, from janitors to interns, mechanics to senior executives, would now have direct access to submit operational improvements. No suggestion would be ignored because of a person's position. Ideas would be evaluated only on their value. The policy became known throughout the company as the Brooks Principle. Listen before you judge. A week later, Victoria visited Ethan's workshop. She placed a folder on his workbench. I know you'll probably refuse another executive position. He smiled. Probably. So this isn't one. Instead, she offered him the role of senior technical mentor. He would continue working regular hours, still coach Lily's soccer team, still eat dinner at home every night. But one day each week, he would train engineers and executives together. Ethan looked through the proposal, then smiled. This, I can do. Months passed. The culture inside Titan Manufacturing changed dramatically. Engineers regularly walked the factory floor. Executives asked maintenance staff for opinions before approving upgrades. Downtime dropped to record lows. Employee satisfaction reached the highest level in company history. One afternoon, Victoria visited Ethan's home to personally thank him. Lily answered the door. "You must be Dad's boss." Victoria laughed. "I am." Lily smiled proudly. "My dad fixes everything." Victoria looked toward Ethan. She isn't wrong. That evening they shared a simple homemade dinner. Nothing expensive, just spaghetti, garlic bread, and laughter. Watching Ethan help Lily with her homework afterward, Victoria finally understood why he had walked away from an executive career. Some promotions pay more. Others cost too much. Years later, Titan Manufacturing received a national award for workplace innovation. During the acceptance speech, reporters asked Victoria what had inspired such a dramatic cultural transformation. She smiled. It started with a maintenance technician who solved in 4 minutes what 50 experts couldn't solve in 3 days. But the greatest lesson wasn't about engineering. It was about humility. Back at the factory, new employees often stopped to read a plaque mounted beside the entrance. It displayed the company's guiding principle. Never confuse a person's job title with the limits of their knowledge. Below it appeared one final sentence Ethan had insisted be added. The best solutions often come from the people closest to the problem. Every morning, Ethan still arrived before sunrise carrying the same worn toolbox. He still repaired machines, still greeted everyone by name, still left work in time to pick Lily up from school. Many people admired the engineer who had once outperformed 50 experts. But Ethan never measured success by applause, awards, or recognition. For him, success was hearing his daughter run across the front yard every afternoon shouting one word that no professional title could ever surpass. "Dad." And every single time, he smiled, set down his toolbox, and remembered that the most important system he would ever maintain wasn't inside a billion-dollar factory. It was the little home where one girl knew, without question, that her father would always come back when she needed him most.